I'll never forget that day. It's burned into my mind like a scar you can't pick at without reopening old pain. My brother's funeral was supposed to be about saying goodbye, about honoring his memory. But everything changed in an instant that I never saw coming. I remember walking into the chapel, my chest heavy with grief, feeling like I was underwater. Everything sounded muffled, my steps slow and heavy. My hands were clammy, and my stomach clenched so tightly I thought I might vomit. Just before the service started, I caught a glimpse of her, my wife, sitting beside my best friend. They looked too comfortable, laughing softly as if they weren't about to bury someone they both claimed to love. That should have been my first red flag, but I was too numb. Later, I caught them exchanging quick, secretive glances when they thought no one was looking. I ignored it, telling myself maybe I was just imagining things, but deep down I knew. I felt it in my gut, that gnawing suspicion that something was off. Still, I held on to the hope that I was wrong, that maybe they were just friends comforting each other. After the funeral, I stayed behind to talk to some of my family. The house was heavy with grief, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something, that something was wrong. That's when I saw her phone on the table, screen lit up with a message from him. "Can't wait to see you tonight." My stomach dropped. My whole world tilted. I didn't want to believe it. I reached out and grabbed her phone without thinking, my fingers trembling. I unlocked it, a stupid, impulsive move, but I couldn't help it. What I saw made my blood run cold. Pictures. Sharp, clear photos of them, my wife and my best friend in bed, tangled together, their faces flushed, oblivious to the camera. I stared at the screen, feeling like the ground had been ripped out from under me. My hands went numb, and I felt heat rising to my face. I clenched her phone so hard my knuckles turned white. That's when everything else faded away, and all I could feel was this sick mix of rage and heartbreak. They betrayed me during the worst day of my life. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Instead, I slipped the phone back onto the table, my mind racing. How had I missed the signs? How could they do this? The worst part was that I'd been vulnerable, weak from grief, craving comfort, and they used that. I felt so stupid, so betrayed. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces, their sneaky smiles. My fists clenched so tight my nails cut into my palms. I kept replaying the moment I found the evidence, the sick feeling in my stomach like I'd swallowed a stone. All I could think was, how do I get revenge on two people I once trusted more than anything? I knew I had to do something, but I had no idea where to start. I didn't want to just walk away, I wanted them to suffer, to pay for what they did. I decided I'd play their game better than they played mine, but I didn't tell anyone yet. I needed time. I needed a plan. When I finally sat up in bed with a cold sweat, I realized I'd crossed a line. There was no going back now, and that's how. I started planning. I knew I was going to make them regret every lie, every betrayal. I just didn't know how yet. But I was about to find out, because once the wheels started turning, there was no stopping me. Would you like me to continue? I spent the next few days like a ghost. My mind kept circling back to that damn photo, burned into my brain. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, that smug look she gave him when they thought I wasn't watching. The betrayal wasn't just about the cheating. It was about how she laughed, how she looked so damn comfortable with him during my brother's funeral. That day, I'd been swallowed by grief, and they decided to rub salt in the wound. I started noticing little things, smirks exchanged behind my back, her phone vibrating constantly, a missed call from him every other hour. I refused to let the anger fester. Instead, I started to plan. Revenge isn't my style. I don't believe in petty shit. I wanted something that would hit them where it hurt. I wanted them to feel the shame I was drowning in. One night, I sat in my chair, the phone in my hand, eyes fixed on the screen. I'd done some digging, found their secret, and now I was looking for my opening. I knew I couldn't just confront them blindly, that would get messy, and I wasn't about to fall into some emotional trap. No, I needed proof, a way to let them see I wasn't some foolish fool to be played. That's when I remembered something. She'd always been careless about passwords. I remembered her leaving her laptop open in the living room once, and her phone was always unlocked. It was stupid, I know, reckless even, but that's what made it perfect. I waited until she was out, then crept into the house. My palms were sweaty, but I was determined. I knew I'd find what I needed. I found her laptop on the kitchen table. It was open, waiting for me like an invitation. I sat down and started scrolling. It was a goldmine. Flirty messages, plans for more meetings, screenshots of their secret rendezvous. I even found a receipt from a hotel booking under a fake name. I felt a sick thrill. This was the proof I needed to cut through her lies, but I didn't just want to gather evidence. I wanted to make them realize I knew. I wanted to see how they'd react when they found out I'd been watching all along. So I devised a plan, a way to let her know I was one step ahead. I'd set the trap, make her believe she was safe, then pull the rug out from under her. The next morning I confronted her. She was surprised, of course. Her eyes darted around, trying to find an escape. I kept my voice calm but cold. "You've been lying," I said. "I know everything, the messages, the hotel, I know about you too." Her face went pale. She stammered, trying to deny, but I cut her off. "Oh, don't bother, I've seen enough. You thought you could do this behind my back, smile in my face, and I wouldn't find out." I dropped the laptop on the table in front of her. "You really thought I was that stupid?" She tried to grab her phone, but I was faster. I snatched it away. Her hands trembled, and her voice cracked. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "Please, I didn't want to hurt you." I looked at her then, feeling every ounce of betrayal sting deep. But I had to stay cold. Revenge was my goal. I told her that I was going to give her one chance to come clean, to tell me everything, or I'd make sure everyone knew what she'd done. The betrayal wasn't just about the cheating, it was about how she played me when I was at my most vulnerable. As she cried, I walked out of the house, knowing I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. But I also knew that I had set the stage. That was just the beginning. "Would you like me to continue?" That night, I sat alone in my apartment, the weight of what I'd uncovered pressing on me like a stone. I'd always thought I knew her, trusted her more than anyone. But the truth was, I'd been blind. The betrayal tasted bitter on my tongue. I replayed her tearful apology over and over, and honestly, I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. I'd caught her in the act, and now I was ready to strike back, harder than she could imagine. Next, I started drafting my plan. I knew I couldn't just send her a message and expect her to understand the damage she'd done. No, I had to make her see that I was in control now. My goal was to make her regret every second she'd chosen to cheat, especially during a time I was shattered. I wanted her to feel the chaos she'd unleashed, to realize I knew everything and I was going to ensure she paid. I also knew I needed leverage. So I went back to her laptop, scoured her email, and found some conversations with other guys, some friends, some strangers, all promising her more. I saved screenshots, compiled a dossier. If I was going to burn her, I'd burn her good. I wanted her to understand that her betrayal had consequences, that I was no longer the naive husband she thought I was. The next step was subtle but powerful. I set up a fake email account, one that looked like it belonged to a new admirer. I made it flirt with her, kept the tone just suggestive enough to keep her interested. I played the game for a few days, all the while gathering intel, waiting for her to slip up. During this time, I also planted a small device in her car, nothing big, just a GPS tracker. I didn't want her to get away, not after what she'd done. I wanted to know where she went, who she saw, how deep the rabbit hole went. Then came the decisive moment. I arranged for her to meet this admirer, me in disguise, at a local coffee shop. I made sure I was there early, armed with a voice recorder, ready to catch her in her own lie. I felt a strange mix of anticipation and disgust as I watched her walk in, head high, with a confident smile. She looked good, too good. Smug even. I approached her, my voice calm and steady but with a cold edge. "You're early," I said softly. "I've been waiting a while." She turned, surprised. "Oh, hi, sorry, I thought you'd be here earlier." I leaned in slightly, keeping my tone light but firm. "Look, I've seen enough. I know everything about you and him, all. Those messages, the hotel, the secret meetings, you thought I wouldn't find out." Her face flickered with shock, then a flash of guilt. "It's not what it looks like," she whispered. "Oh, I think it is," I said, pulling out the recorder. "I've got everything, and I'm not interested in your excuses. I want you to understand something. This isn't just about cheating. It's about how you lied, how you betrayed me when I was vulnerable." I paused, letting it sink in. "Today, I'm giving you a choice. Come clean and you might still have a shot at saving what's left, or keep lying and I'll make sure everyone knows what you did." She looked like she wanted to say something, but the words caught in her throat. That moment, I knew I'd won the game of patience. I'd played it smart, and now I was ready to shut her out for good. I left her sitting there, stunned and shivering. I already had everything I needed. The plan was in motion, and I knew she'd regret ever betraying me during the one time I was at my lowest. The betrayal might have shattered me, but it also lit a fire I wasn't ready to put out. Would you like me to continue? The days that followed felt like a slow burn. I stayed quiet, letting her stew in her own guilt. I had everything I needed: her texts, the hotel reservation, the voice recordings. I turned her world upside down, and I could feel her anxiety mounting. She'd been acting differently, more nervous, avoiding me, always looking over her shoulder. The truth was, she knew. She knew I was onto her and that she'd push me right into the corner. One morning, she finally broke down. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, eyes red-rimmed, trembling. Her hands were clenched into fists, and I could see the sweat on her brow. That's when she started to plead, trying to justify her actions, saying she was lonely, that I'd been distant, that she made a mistake. I didn't buy it. I'd heard enough. "You think I don't see what this is about?" I asked, voice steady but with a sharp edge. "You cheated because I wasn't giving you what you wanted, because I was too busy working, too distracted. Well, I guess that was your excuse, but I see you for what you really are now." She looked away, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Please don't do this. I love you, love." I interrupted, feeling my jaw tight. "You don't love me if you're sleeping with my best friend. You don't love me if you betray me during my brother's funeral. That's not love, that's betrayal. And I need you to understand, you're not getting away with this." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the folder I'd prepared, copies of every message, every secret rendezvous. I slid it across the table so she could see. Her eyes widened as she saw the evidence laid bare. "Now I want to ask you something," I said. "Do you want to keep pretending that everything's fine, or are you ready to face what you've done?" She looked desperate. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice barely audible. "I was weak. I was lonely. I didn't mean for it to go this far." "That's the thing," I said softly. "I don't want apologies. I want you to understand what you've lost, because I've got something planned, something you're not going to like." She looked at me, puzzled and afraid. "What are you talking about?" I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "I'm going to make sure everyone knows who you really are, not just to me but to everyone, your friends, your family, hell, even your coworkers. You want to betray me, fine, but you're going to regret it, every second of it." Her face crumpled. I could see the realization sinking in, that I was serious. I had prepared everything: the evidence, the plan, the final blow. I knew I'd hit her where it hurt. I told her I was giving her one last chance: confess everything to her family and friends herself, or I would do it for her. I wanted her to see that she wasn't just losing me, she was about to lose her reputation too. Her voice cracked. "Please don't do this. I'll tell everyone, I swear. Just don't ruin me." I shook my head, feeling a strange mixture of anger and satisfaction. "It's already done. You wanted to see me broken. Well, now I'm going to make sure you're the one who's broken." The next few days were a blur. I started making arrangements, calling her sister, her best friend, the people I knew she cared about. I told them everything, showed them the evidence, and watched their shock and disgust ripple through her carefully constructed life. When she finally confronted her own family, I saw her crumble. She called me that night, crying and begging for forgiveness, promising she'd do anything to fix things. But I didn't want apologies. I wanted her to feel the pain she'd caused me. I told her that I'd be gone, that I was done, that her betrayal had sealed our fate. I handed over the keys to her apartment and told her to leave. I filed for divorce the next day, making it clear that I was done pretending. It hurt, but I knew this was the only way to reclaim my dignity. Looking back, I realized the betrayal cut deep. But I also learned something important. Sometimes, the only way to heal is to take control of the chaos and make them see they can't get away with it. That day, I finally closed that chapter of my life. And honestly, I felt a strange sense of relief. And that's the takeaway: when someone betrays you like that, silence isn't an option. You have to fight back, smart, cold, and strategic. Because if you don't, they'll keep pushing you further until there's nothing left of the person you once were. After I handed her the keys and told her to get out, I expected some relief, some sense that the nightmare was finally over. But what I felt was a strange emptiness mixed with a simmering sense of victory. I'd done it. I'd exposed her, destroyed what she thought was unbreakable. Still, beneath that, there was a gnawing doubt. Was I really done, or was I just fooling myself into thinking I could reclaim what I'd lost? The first few days after she left were surreal. The apartment, once filled with her laughter and perfume, now felt hollow and cold. Every corner reminded me of what I'd lost, but also of what I'd gained, my dignity. Though I knew I'd be better off without her, a part of me still wondered if I'd gone too far, if I'd let revenge spin out of control. But then I remembered the betrayal during my brother's funeral, the pain, the heartbreak, the blood-boiling rage that pushed me to act. I told myself that I'd done what I had to do to protect myself. In the weeks that followed, I started slowly rebuilding. I threw myself into work, kept busy, and avoided dwelling on the past. But I couldn't escape the images. Her crying, the evidence I collected, the look in her eyes when I confronted her. That look told me she knew she'd lost everything because of her own choices. Still, I kept my guard up. Trust is a fragile thing, and I wasn't sure I could ever fully rebuild that with anyone again. One afternoon, I ran into a mutual friend, someone I'd trusted once. She pulled me aside, looked around nervously, and asked what had happened. When I told her, her face paled. I knew something was off, she admitted. I saw her phone a couple of times, but I didn't want to get involved. I'm sorry, I wish I had said something earlier. That hurt more than I expected. The people I thought I knew turned out to be just as blindsided as I'd been. It made me realize that betrayal doesn't just come from the person you love. It's a web of lies and silence that can trap everyone around you. I started questioning my own judgment. Had I been blind all along? Did I miss the signs? The truth was, I desperately wanted to believe in us, in the life we'd built. But she shattered it all with a single act of betrayal. I didn't want to let that define me, but I couldn't ignore the scars either. I eventually decided to stop obsessing over her and focus on myself. I started going back to the gym, reconnecting with old friends, and working on my passions. Still, every now and then I'd find myself replaying the moment I found the evidence, feeling that old surge of anger. And I'd remind myself that I'd already won the war, I'd taken back control. But what struck me most was how much I'd changed. I used to trust blindly, believe in happily ever after. Now I was more cautious, more guarded. I knew that betrayal could come from the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the only way to protect yourself is to take the offensive. I learned a lot from this experience, mainly that revenge isn't about hurting someone just to hurt them, but about reclaiming your power, about showing them that their actions have consequences, about not letting someone destroy your sense of self. Now, I'm rebuilding my life, more aware of the red flags, more confident in my own strength. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I'll never let someone's betrayal define me again. I've learned to walk away from the chaos, to trust myself more, and to remember that sometimes the best revenge is simply living your life better than they ever thought possible. Would you like me to continue? Looking back, I realized that the pain of betrayal doesn't really go away. You carry it with you, sometimes like a heavy weight in your chest, other times like a distant ache that surfaces unexpectedly. But what I learned from all of this is that reclaiming your life is the real victory. It's about taking control when everything feels out of control, about standing tall when you want to crawl under the covers and hide. The moment I handed her the keys and told her to leave was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But it was also the most freeing. It felt like I finally took a deep breath after holding my breath for too long. That act was my way of saying, "You don't get to ruin me. Not today, not ever." After she left, I made a conscious decision to focus on myself. I started therapy, not because I thought I needed to fix anything, quite the opposite. I needed to remind myself that I was still whole, still deserving of trust and respect. I threw myself into my work and hobbies, things I'd let slip away in the chaos. Slowly, I started to rebuild a version of myself I could be proud of. The betrayal taught me who my real friends were. Those who reached out, checked in, and didn't judge. They saw my pain without trying to fix it, just simply being there. That support meant everything, more than I realized at first. It helped me piece myself back together, one day at a time. There's still a part of me that feels anger at her, at my best friend, at the whole world for letting this happen. But I've learned to channel that anger productively. It fuels my drive to heal, to grow stronger, to never let anyone get that close again without careful scrutiny. Trust isn't given freely anymore. It's earned through actions, not words. And when I think about that day, the betrayal during my brother's funeral, I don't feel just pain. I feel a strange sense of empowerment, because I turned my grief into a weapon, not a weakness. I took control of the narrative instead of letting it define me. That's the real lesson. They can betray you, but they can never take your strength if you refuse to give it to them. So here's what I want anyone reading this to take away. If you find yourself betrayed, don't let it destroy you. Use the pain as a catalyst for change. Take back your power. Cut out the toxic people, expose the lies, and walk away with your head held high. Revenge isn't about getting even. It's about reclaiming your dignity and proving that they don't get to decide who you are. And remember, sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. Because at the end of the day, the most satisfying thing is knowing you're better off without them, and that you're finally in control of your own story.